On today's pod, we're going to be joined, as you can see in the title, by Jake Stevens. We talk TBT, Summer League, and his time in the NBA G League. We also dive into just the pathway for a guy, going to a smaller college, working his way up, and now trying to get an NBA contract. Huge shout out to Jake. He showed some love last year after the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. You can go check that pod out, that article that I'll reference here in the show today. But super happy to have Jake on. He was really, really great, gracious to give us some time. Jake is an awesome dude. We appreciate his time. Before we jump into the interview with Jake, just remember that 2-Pointers is presented by SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase, whether you're going to these TBT games we talked about, if you're going to be in the Ville, or for the championship in Philadelphia, like we talked about in this interview. $20 off your first purchase. Link in the top of the description. SeatGeek.com. SeatGeek is one of the best ticketing apps out there. You get a deal score 1 through 10, red, yellow, green, letting you know what you're getting from a value standpoint, whether it's the price, the seat. You can even get a view of your seat as well, which is really great. So SeatGeek, big thank you to them for supporting the show. Big thank you to you guys for continuing to like, comment, subscribe. 5-star rating and review is greatly appreciated. Be sure to show Jake some love. Jake Stevens 0 on Twitter. He is obviously working his way up and trying to get into an NBA opportunity. We talk about that goal and that journey today. The TBT, he just hit a buzzer beater for a team that had not made it to past the first round in the TBT in many years. So we get into some great stuff with Jake. Don't forget to check out all of our other shows as well we've done the last couple of weeks. And then anything working on in the future. Trivia Showdown will be out very, very shortly. Enjoy the episode with Jake.
Fight.
All right. We are joined today by Jake Stevens. The listeners and viewers may recognize the name because of his recent buzzer beater in the TBT for Eberlin Drive. However, he also played for the Charlotte Hornets in this year's NBA Summer League. We're going to talk about that. Hornets fans, I know, are excited to talk and hear about that. Previously played in 30 games for the G League's Capital City Go-Go this year. And then for my SoCon fans out there, you'll know him as former college standout VMI in Chattanooga. So now that nice introduction's out there for you. We connected last year. Appreciate the follow, and looking forward to talking to you. The buzzer beater is a nice reminder to get this scheduled. So, how are you, first of all?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a pretty crazy past couple of days, but finally got some downtime. So been looking forward to this.
Absolutely. For those that, depending on when people are listening to it, right? The focus right now is to win $1 million or a split of $1 million. So the TBT, I'll link the episode we did with, Dr. Elam talking about the idea of kind of how the TBT brought the Elam ending in. And I'm going to get your thoughts on it later today as well. With players and coaches, especially the first time, I told you this before we started, I like to get to know them a little bit and kind of know how we got to this point. So this is kind of a fun story. I know you spent, 4 years at VMI, a year at Chattanooga. That was kind of where, I don't know, ceilings to talk to you about the draft process and where that kind of spiked. And then that brings us, at least with, us chatting about basketball, or at least getting to where I found you, I was at Portsmouth last year, which obviously is a really cool experience as a whole. And I actually had you, I did an article recapping it. I had you as my 2023 PIT second team center. So you can add that one to your resume.
Let's go.
But I'm going to read you what I wrote. I'm going to be constructive. It's fun. I want to get your kind of thought. So I wrote, Jake provides a unique skill set as a stretch big. He's versatile as a pick and roll and pick and pop threat. This is based on only what I saw this weekend, of course. You had 5 years of good tape. He showed significant improvements over his 5 years in college and his shooting efficiency numbers. As a strong 6'10" player, his presence in the post offensively leaves something to be desired, but I think the threat as a shooter can mask some of that. Defensively, he is active and demonstrates excellent communication on switches and through screens, especially when his teammates may not see when a screen is coming. The way the modern NBA is with its need for bigs that can shoot the ball, why not give a guy who shot 55% from the field and 40% from three this year on career high attempts contributing to an NBA team? So is that accurate? And if not, who is Jake Stevens, the basketball player?
No, I actually appreciate that. You didn't call me one of the slowest players alive. I've heard that before, specifically from my college coach. He told me I was the slowest player in Division I basketball my freshman year. No, I mean, I know if this was my final form as a basketball player, if objectively, if this was someone else and I'm evaluating them, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a G League guy, a fringe NBA guy. Like he's probably better overseas. But I personally, I don't believe this is, my final form. I think I can get a lot better. I think I can get, more athletic. And, all the stuff that has kind of been around me my whole life. I think that's just one of the biggest things. Like with an NBA team with their resources and the strength and conditioning department, like I don't think there's any reason why I couldn't make huge improvements. So as a player, I feel like I just have so much more to get better at, and that's kind of why, I'm continuing to fight for that spot. Um, but yeah, I mean, if it is overseas, like I have no problem with that either. Like I love the game of basketball, and I just want to play at the highest levels. So
I love it. Talk to me. I like the nugget about the VMI days there. I'm glad you clarified what year it was, of course, because you go into a school like that where the basketball history is something that the school's been around for a long time, but the basketball history maybe isn't as strong as maybe a North Carolina,
to
Duke,
say the
we all know
least,
that.
yeah.
But going into that experience, though, like those military academies aren't easy by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, your last year, your kind of final hurrah that was really incredible was at Chattanooga. But talk about how important that experience at VMI was.
It's insane. Like you learn so much about yourself and like how far you can really push yourself. And honestly, it comes down to, it's pretty much you're in basketball or you're in class. So I was able to just kind of really focus in on basketball for 4 years and just kind of set myself up for the future and kind of set those, time management and work habits that I can now carry over with me. Like it seems, you get out of VMI and it seems like the days are longer. Like you're like, man, I have this much time now. Like before it was wake up at, 6:45, you have breakfast formation at 7. You're pretty much going the whole day until maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then you have practice right after that, dinner 7 to 8, study hall right after that. And then, you're hoping to be asleep by 10, 11 o'clock. So, and you do it again the next day, even if it's a weekend. So it's like you're pretty busy, but like I said, it's really helped prepare me for life outside of it.
So let's fast forward a little bit. I know the Chattanooga fans might not want me to jump past those days, but they can go. They know, right? They understand
Yeah,
how fun
they
that
get
year
it.
was. But let's talk about the Elam ending and the TBT as a whole. The Elam ending we'll get to. Talk about the opportunity, how you got to play for Eberlin Drive, and for context for the listeners, they're only one of two remaining teams from the inaugural TBT in 2014, which is really cool. Haven't made the first round in 2 straight summers, so obviously this is an incredible place to be.
Yep.
The shot that we just saw the other day really put you guys in that position. So before we get to the shot in this past game, how did that come about? How did the opportunity to play in the TBT, get to your doorstep?
Just kind of like basketball connections. One of the coaches I was fortunate enough to work with in DC with the Go Go. He had coached Eberlin Drive, and just kind of put in a good word for me. I grew up watching the TBT. Like I obviously West Virginia. Like I'm from there. They have a good team, and it's always fun to see those names on the jerseys play. Even doesn't even matter if they're good. Like you just want to see Deshaun Butler and all those guys out there. Um, so I knew I wanted to play in it, and then this popped up. Obviously, I knew it was going to be at the tail end of summer league, and I told him I was straight up with him like I want to focus on summer league first, and kind of whatever happens, I'll do my best to get to wherever you all are as long as you win it. And they held up their end of the bargain, got 2 wins, got me out here to Indy, and we got the job done last night.
So talking about obviously the shot was incredible, tipping it in at the end there, right? Talk about what that moment was like, knowing that you're one step closer to, again, for those that don't know, this is $1 million prize. I mean, this is like, guys, that's a contract for some guys, and that's just an
Yeah,
incredible amount of money. And so talk about what that means for, how big that moment was to get you guys, job's not finished, as Kobe
yeah,
just said,
absolutely.
but
I mean,
talk about that moment.
it puts us in the Elite Eight, so 3 games away, obviously 3 wins away. But just, like I was telling people, the past 48 hours, you go from playing in the summer league against the Brooklyn Nets, like had a pretty solid game there. Wake up the next morning at 5 a.m., travel day, all of the flight trouble that's been happening, had flights canceled, had flights delayed, lost my bags. So land in Indianapolis, get to the hotel around 2 a.m. You have a shoot around at 10 a.m. Just meet the guys, try to work in some sets and stuff. And, you're out there on the court playing by 7. And I told people last night too, it's like we all speak the language of basketball. We all know what a ball screen is. We all know what a flare is. Like, let's just get out here. Let's get to work. And thankfully it was, I felt like that was the only way it could happen. Like it was written in the stars almost. So I was happy to be there, and I've just enjoyed every part of this journey thus far.
So obviously your shot was part of a overarching theme that comes with TBT, which is known as the Elam ending. For those that might not know, it's been tested in the NBA All-Star Game setting. I believe it's still used to this day in that setting. Talk to me about, like, you hear about media members giving their opinion on it. I've talked to Dr. Elam. Obviously, the guy who invented it's going to tell me it's an awesome thing. That's totally fair, right? But are you a fan? I know we talked a little bit off the recording, but for the listeners, are you a fan of it? And then do you see it being valuable to the game of basketball at the highest level?
So I'm absolutely a fan of it. I think it serves a good place in a setting like this. It just kind of brings a different like energy towards the end of the game. Um, and then obviously, I don't know if people watch the G League that much, but their overtime is basically the Elam ending. So they've even adopted it. So I mean, it's already basically at the highest level. But I'm not so sure that the NBA could do it, just because based on my experience with it last night in a couple overtime games, like the game gets so physical at the end. You're just putting a lot of pressure on the refs, and you're putting them in a really tough spot to, like, are we going to end the game on a couple free throws here? Like, is that really, because that's kind of the whole point of the Elam, is to kind of eliminate that. And that's just kind of the natural tendency is, you tense up, and you're trying to keep somebody from scoring 8 points. Like, it's it's all out battle. So it does get tough, and I kind of feel for the refs, because I think it would put them in a pretty awkward spot. A lot of times, like last night, things were pretty physical. Some fouls that should have been fouls weren't called. um, but I think it's a great setup for anything like this, like some summertime, obviously, the All-Star game, G League games, summer league games. I think it brings a really good energy towards the end of games.
Yeah, funny you mentioned the trying to prevent the whole free throw thing, and yet literally the first iteration we get in the NBA All-Star game, Anthony Davis hits 2 free throws, and I think he
Yep,
missed one of them. He only needed to make one of them. It was
yep,
crazy. I'm like, that alone gave some cool drama. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
yeah, I just have a hard time. Like, and I think you kind of alluded to it there. I don't want to speak for you, but like, I have a hard time like watching Nuggets Timberwolves and being like in the Western Conference what finals or semifinals in this case, and just being like, yes, this is going to be this ending where there's no clock, there's no tenseness to the moment. The clock is important. Teams think about it. It's something that's prevalent 5 minutes before. I just have a hard time being like Nikola Jokic and Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert and these guys are going to square off and it's going to
Yep,
be that ending. Like but crazier things have happened. Basketball used to not have a 3-point line for crying out loud. Now,
it's a good
you're
point.
7 foot tall shooting threes at
It's a good
40%. Like that
point.
just like if you had told someone that in the 70s, 80s, they'd be like, that's just not happening. Like in
Right.
the block, right? Like they'd be like, get
Yeah.
down there. But it's just wild to think of where we come. You mentioned the travel with the summer league. I want to talk about summer league and that experience. And I've talked to guys like it's it's this place that is, and I want to go one day. I think it's such a cool environment.
It's awesome.
What is it like for a player that's trying to make a team and trying to, you have your Brandon Millers of the world that you were a teammate of, but then you also have like guys like you that are trying to put themselves out there, not in front of the Charlotte Hornets, but a lot of fans don't understand like 29 other teams and 29 now other G League teams that there's an opportunity out there. And of course you came from a G League roster, but talk about that experience as a player.
I mean, it's amazing, and some of the best stories that come out of it are, so and so gets signed to a two-way after they went crazy in summer league or whatever. Like, it's almost like you go to a big AAU tournament, you do well, and you get an offer like to go to a Division I school or something. Like, it's really that same feeling, only now at the highest level. So it really just kind of takes you back to this big AAU feel. You're walking around the hotel and you're bumping into people that you're playing against, or you're riding in the elevator with other coaches and stuff. And it really is just a neat like atmosphere that the whole NBA world comes together in Vegas for. It feels like about 3 weeks, even though it's like what, a week and a half, maybe 10 days. Um, but no, it's amazing. Like you said, there's obviously the team you're with is evaluating you every step of the way, but I would imagine every other team is watching you play as well. Like, they're all sitting in the stands, and trying to, create the best roster for them. So it's a pretty cool setting. And I was definitely lucky this year to, have some good games out there, whether at least anything or not, you don't know, but you just want to put some good film out there and stuff. And I feel like I did that.
Is there somebody that surprised you? Whether you can talk about a teammate, but is there anybody you maybe went against or teammates with this summer league that surprised you and you maybe see a potential for them here coming up?
I mean, the easy answer is Matt Morgan. Like,
I know,
yeah,
yeah.
the easy answer is Matt Morgan. I mean, he goes out there and has 36
North Carolina
in the
kid
one
too.
game, which is pretty crazy. Um, I'm trying to think of well, last year, I mean, we had Jordan Ford with the Kings.
Yep.
He earned a two-way basically off of his performance in the summer league and throughout the G League with them last year. So it's just always cool to kind of see guys that have stuck with the team for a little bit and then are on their summer league roster and then they finally get the chance to step up and to be on the big roster. So Jordan Ford was a great one. Even Keon Ellis, like I got to play with him, and now he's on a standard contract and just killing it in the NBA. So like these are all guys that like I look up to and that have done something that I want to do.
So talk to me about I want to get to some other Hornet stuff specifically here in a second, but talk to me about I brought up our pass crossing at Portsmouth, right? And how important for a guy that's trying to make the league, a guy that's trying to get a contract, a guy that's trying to make a summer league roster, whatever the situation is, right? Every bit of those stepping stones are things like Portsmouth, right? There's these opportunities that come up that are invite only, that are,
Or the
hey, this
TBT.
is TBT, right? Like this is stuff that, obviously you talked about TBT's influence. I should have started with Portsmouth in a more, timeline oriented manner, but if maybe for a guy out there that's thinking about turning it down or thinking about this or the opportunity, talk about how important a setting like Portsmouth is. Obviously, there's teams all over the place. I think there's 5, 6, 7 scouts a team sometimes. Some of those say,
Yeah.
but talk about the Portsmouth experience specifically for those that aren't aware of it.
I mean, it's amazing. Like you go out there and like you're given like a whole pamphlet, like a history of it. And then I think when I went out there, it was 69 or 70 years of it. And you're just like, man,
Yeah,
like, I can't even believe this has been around that long. And there's been amazing players that have played in it. Um, but it's just like another opportunity to play basketball, to get good run against really good competition. Along with obviously they do some testing and stuff out there, like vertical, 3/4 court sprint, all that stuff. But on top of this, I don't think a lot of people know that you do a ton of interviews with teams. It's basically like a big job interview, like circuit. Like you'll just bounce around from team to team, and it's just a good way to really meet people. Have them put a face to your name. Some of them don't come of anything. You have a good interview, it doesn't necessarily mean much, but like you're just practicing those life skills and just talking to people, communicating, like all these little things that you don't really think matter, like all of a sudden they matter, and maybe a 0.1% if it can put you above somebody else. So it's just a cool way to go, play people, meet people, and just kind of keep your name relevant, really.
for anybody that's involved in, I encourage folks to if they're involved in basketball in any way, media doesn't matter. I encourage people because it's authentic. It's authentic basketball. I love that note about the history in the packet. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so it's super authentic. Even if the crowd isn't into it the first couple of days, I mean, people, I mean, you're like feet off of a high school court. So it's not like you have no excuse about seeing these guys. They're right in front of you. So it's really, really cool.
And a
I
lot of the
wanted to touch on that.
guys, yeah, a lot of the guys will be coming off of like big NCAA tournament, runs
That's
or
right.
something like that. So you're getting like big names, like relevant names at the time, are out there playing in a local high school in Portsmouth, Virginia. Like it's a pretty big deal.
It's really awesome for that community too to get those kinds of guys in there and get
Yeah.
guys that have had incredible college careers like yours. Whether that's we'll get to. I told you to get to the Charlotte thing in a second. I promise. But is there somebody? It made me think of this from last year because there was like you mentioned the names, the tough competition. Like it was an incredible slate of players. Is there anybody, maybe not necessarily from college, but anybody in the last year or so in basketball trying to make the NBA that was just super tough to guard? Like somebody that you just still think about and you're like, that was a rough night.
Um, man, I've had plenty of rough nights. Honestly, probably the worst came in practice, um, playing against like Hamadou Diallo, and I'm just like,
It's good.
man, this guy is just like freaky athletic, like
Yeah.
so good. And just in terms of basketball life, you're like, yeah, he's older, he's been around. And we're talking one day and he's like, yeah, I'm 25, like, I'm older. I'm like, I'm 24. Like, what are we doing? Like,
I love
this is
that.
crazy. Like, we were basically the
Uh,
same age. Like, I remember, like, we were basically the same age when you were going to Kentucky and stuff. Um, and then when I was with Stockton with the Kings, like our team consists of Scala BCR, Stanley Johnson,
mhm.
Jeremy Lamb, Deontay Burton, Jalen Noel, like all of these guys. And then me and Dane Goodwin are like the two rookies, and we're just kind of like we're supposed to compete with like what are we doing here? So definitely had a couple welcome to the NBA moments in practice for sure.
Like, the G League has such a cool blend of those guys. Like you mentioned
Yeah.
Dane just now, he was another guy that was there last year at Portsmouth. I mean, just
Yep.
another opportunity, like you said, to just be playing in front of guys. And now I was just watching Summer League and he had some incredible plays this summer. So really interesting to think about. The guy I thought you were going to say from last year at Portsmouth was like DeAndre Williams. You mentioned the age thing with Diallo. DeAndre's like, 26 or something at
Yeah.
that point, and
Yep.
he's built like a linebacker. And I was like,
Yep.
I feel like anybody should be afraid to guard him, but I thought
Exactly.
he was a fun one to watch last year as well. So, all right, Hornets fans are just gonna like click off the video. Uh, Viral video that came out that got Hornets fans in a frenzy. You made a cameo in it again. I
Let's
joked with you
go.
earlier. It's like stretching or whatever, right? I wish it was a basketball move, but the thing that came from that was Charles Lee. Talk about Charles Lee, his intensity. He's got this. You don't hear a bad thing about the guy when you talk to people in the NBA. And I believe all of it, and I love it. I just want to hear it from your perspective. Talk
Yeah.
about Charles Lee and just what he is as a coach.
I mean, so I got to work with him obviously in the Cali Classic, in the week leading up to those games. So I've only worked with him for, a week and a half or whatever that was. But you could just tell right away, like he just brings this renewed energy of just like, hey, we're gonna do stuff the right way, or we're not gonna do it. Like in practice, you mess up one little thing, it's like, all right, we're gonna cut it, we're gonna restart, we're gonna do it over again from the top. Um, so he just brings like this renewed energy of just, hey, we're gonna compete, we're gonna do stuff the right way, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna get after it. But he's also like a really humble guy. Like that was one of the biggest things. Like he comes out there and coaches, all these guys in summer league that he doesn't have to coach. I mean, Brandon Miller was in some of our practices, but he wasn't playing. Like it was, um, not the star players or anything. Like he's coaching guys that will probably not even be on the Hornets next year. So for him to do that, I just think it really speaks to him being humble and wanting to compete and really just wanting to prove himself right away.
All right. So I like to ask this with players, especially on the way out. I couldn't get your major pulled up for whatever reason from back in the
Computer
day, but
science, baby.
all right, cool. And I know the background with the military too. Like a lot of that carries weight, right? When you talk about you said you don't care where it is. One day there's going to be a day where it's just basketball's done, right? And I know it's the day everyone dreads, but what is Jake Stevens doing, or what's the idea? What's the vision? Anything after basketball one day? Hopefully, it's a long time from now.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I was actually asked this the other day too, and I was just like, I really just don't imagine myself in a world without basketball. So I'd probably be coaching or training in some way. I actually started doing that a little bit this summer with a friend of mine back home in his gym. Just whether it's I think we had a little dribblers group we called it with like 4 or 5 year olds, and we're running them through drills, or I'm working up with the college kids and stuff like that too. So coaching in some way, I think is probably what I'll do because I definitely couldn't work at a desk or anything. Like I have to be in a gym, so I'd figure that out. But I think that's also a big part of my journey is just meeting so many good people, and people along the way that you hope eventually you can give them a call, and if you're in a situation where you need something, then they can help you out.
All right, last question. We'll get you out of here, and then you can talk about anything on the way out that you might, be. I don't know. Maybe you're working on something like that with the camp. It's really cool to hear when guys are working on stuff outside of their everyday playing career. If there's a high school guy listening who's going through the process, you mentioned the joke about the AAU and how that environment felt similar to other experiences with the TBT, or with summer league. Excuse me. What's your biggest advice to somebody that's going through the process, maybe because we talk to high school guys all the time and it just seems like that's an overwhelming place that kind of people can't get their feet grounded, right? They can't figure out how to like make the right decision. you went to VMI, you obviously transferred to Chattanooga, and now you're going through the NBA cycle. So you're doing the things that these guys are looking forward to.
Yep.
What's the biggest advice you have for somebody that's maybe in high school that's trying to figure their place out and try to get to that NBA level one day?
I mean, the biggest thing to me, it's so hard nowadays too, because there's a lot of like fake love out there, but it's to really go where you're wanted. Like I probably could have walked on, at some other school, but I knew that Coach Earl at VMI really wanted me. Um, and I knew that he was willing to work with me and, give me a shot to get better. So like really just go where you're wanted, like run your own race because no two people have a similar path. It's different for every single person. Um, and it's never going to be easy. But I think if you go where you're wanted, you stick around, you make good friendships, make good relationships, and you just kind of stay loyal to that as a person. I think it'll come back to you in the end. And that was the big decision on going to Chattanooga. It's like this obviously Coach Earl goes there, and it's like this guy recruited me from the beginning, wants me when no one else does, and he had a bunch of the staff with him. So I'm like, why would I not stay with him? Do well, and not only boost my name, but in turn, I'm hoping I'm helping him out in some small way, and it's just been a great relationship to have with him. And it could have all been different. If you transfer somewhere else, sure he's still on the phone, but it's not quite the same. So go where you're wanted, run your own race because it's going to be different for everyone.
All right, it's at Jake Stevens 0 on Twitter. That's where at least I'm following him at, keeping up with the journey. Let people know where they can, find you if there's anything. I'm used to doing this with media people a little bit more, so
No, you're good.
it's
You're
going to
good.
sound like I'm asking for a podcast promotion here. But anything you want to talk about or plug on the way out that people would need to be checking out?
No, just hit up the socials. Like I said, I am helping a gym back home, Mountain State Hoops Academy in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. So if anyone's ever in the area, let us know. We'll come run you through a workout. So, but I
Love it.
appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. And TBT, of course, those games and matchups and opponents are being decided, but Elite Eight and then the Final Four round will be played in Philly. So hopefully we'll see you in Philly here on Fox Sports here very soon. So I
Let's
appreciate you,
do
my
it.
friend.